Welcome everyone to Things Around 8. Dear friends, in this video we will talk about a statement made by Vladimir Putin, who said that if the West authorizes Ukraine to use long-range weapons against targets inside Russia, NATO and Russia will officially be at war. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the notification bells so you don't miss any news. On Wednesday, September 11th, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy were in Kiev for a high-level meeting with President Zelensky to discuss several important issues, with many sources stating that among these issues was authorization for Ukraine to use Western long-range weapons against targets inside Russia. No announcement was made in this regard after the meeting, with President Zelensky saying only that he is still waiting for the authorization. But it was enough for Russia to make several serious statements in response to this possibility. According to Dmitry Peskov, Vladimir Putin's spokesman, if Ukraine receives authorization to use long-range weapons against targets inside Russian territory, Russia will take what it called serious and grave measures, not only against Ukraine, but also against the countries of origin of the long-range weapons. In practice, Peskov threatened to attack the United States, the United Kingdom and France, the countries of origin of the long-range weapons used by Ukraine. A few hours later, it was Sergei Lavrov, the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, who spoke out on this matter, echoing Peskov's statement, saying that if Western long-range weapons were used against Russia, Russia would respond in kind, implying a threat to attack the countries supplying these weapons. And this Thursday, September 12th, it was Vladimir Putin's turn to also speak out on this topic, saying that if Ukraine receives authorization to use Western long-range weapons against Russia, the very nature of the conflict will change and the United States, NATO and Europe will be directly at war with Russia. Putin concluded by saying that if this is the case, Russia will adapt and make appropriate decisions based on this new nature of the conflict. In other words, Putin, Peskov and Lavrov said in their usual convoluted and verbose way of making statements that if Ukraine receives the green light to use Western long-range weapons, Russia and NATO will be at war. But why is Russia reacting so aggressively to this possibility? And just as importantly, are these Russian threats real? And is the world really at risk of plunging into a world war? Russia's reaction is perfectly understandable, since we are talking about truly lethal and efficient long-range weapons. The first weapon that comes to mind when we talk about this type of equipment is the British Storm Shadow and its French variant, the Scalp. This is a large and heavy missile, just over 5 meters long and weighing almost 1.5 tons, armed with a 450-kilo explosive warhead, air-launched and capable of hitting targets at a maximum distance of 550 to 600 kilometers. This means that if launched near the Russian-Ukrainian border, it is capable of hitting the important Russian air bases in the Moscow region. It has impressive accuracy, and in fact it was these missiles that hit and damaged a small Russian submarine in Sevastopol. And its destructive power is also very high, with these missiles demolishing the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. Therefore, if Ukraine receives authorization from the West to use these missiles against targets deep inside Russia, all Russian air bases within 500 or 600 kilometers of the border will inevitably be hit and damaged, forcing Russia to withdraw its fighters and bombers from these locations and operate them from bases much further away. Another precision weapon that Ukraine will use on Russian territory if it receives authorization to do so is the HIMARS, including its Atacams missiles. The HIMARS, in its classic version, with high-precision projectiles and ranges of up to 80 kilometers, would already pose a serious threat to Russian bases and depots near the Ukrainian border. With the Atacams, with a range of up to 300 kilometers, it also poses a risk to some Russian air bases closer to the border. All these advanced technologies frighten and worry Russia greatly. So yes, the Russian reaction to this possibility is perfectly understandable. Are the threats made by Peskov, Lavrov and Putin real? And is there really a risk of a full-scale war between Russia and NATO? An open, full-scale war between Russia and NATO is something that neither side wants. If one member of the alliance is attacked, all the other 31 members will have to intervene directly in the conflict. This means that more than 3.5 million Western soldiers will now face 1.1 million Russian soldiers who, as we know very well, have been literally bogged down in an endless war inside Ukraine for more than 2.5 years. For many analysts, If Russia is not able to deliver decisive blows against Ukraine, which is only using a few Western weapons, it will have no prospect of success against NATO's full and main force. Russia itself has acknowledged in several previous statements that if it is forced to fight the alliance directly, NATO's numerical and technological advantage will force Russia to use nuclear weapons to avoid defeat. But Russia obviously knows very well that if it uses nuclear weapons, the response it will receive will also be nuclear. Putin may be a dictator with a thirst for expansionism, but he is not crazy, and that is why he will do everything he can to prevent NATO from directly entering this conflict, as he has already done on several occasions, drawing several red lines on the ground that, once crossed, have led only to empty threats. What Putin and the top members of his regime are doing is just more of the same. That is, they are drawing red lines on the ground that, once crossed, will be forgotten, with others being drawn later. Russia's reaction shows how much Putin is concerned about the possibility of Ukraine using long-range weapons. But it is also quite clear that the Russians will not bring the full weight of NATO into the war, knowing that this will lead to a nuclear conflict, the result of which will be the defeat of everyone on the planet. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the notification bells so you don't miss any news.